Hello and welcome to Headlines Special. After a few days of increased uncertainty, confusion and boiling tensions, what still remains to be a fragile Gaza ceasefire deal is back on track. The arrangement agreed on the 15th of January came close to the point of collapse after Hamas announced that the group would delay the further release of hostages held in the Gaza Strip, accusing Israel of ceasefire violations. In response to this, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, ready for any eventuality, stated that the ceasefire would end if the hostages were not returned, in fact demanding the release of all of them, not just those scheduled to be released as part of the sixth round of the swap. Now, subsequent to the talks held in Cairo, Hamas is saying that the group is committed to implementing the deal with Israel and will continue releasing hostages as scheduled, with this giving rise to hopes that the resumption of a full-scale war can now be averted. Joining me now are Ken van Leeuland, political analyst, former intelligence officer. He's joining from Amsterdam, the Netherlands, and Nizo Dahan, representing Stand Up for Palestine organization, joining from Swansea, Wales, United Kingdom. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Ken, what was the original gridlock about? And because following the talks in Cairo, Hamas is now saying that mediators from Egypt and Qatar had confirmed that they would remove obstacles. What are those obstacles?
Well, as we did this week, it was a very fragile ceasefire, and that Hamas would look for every opportunity to, let's say, to frustrate the process. The only thing what they have leverage on is hostages. That's the only thing. And they will do anything to make that lengthy process. And that's what we all predicted, that this was going to definitely.
Anisa, the same question to you. What are those obstacles which need to be removed? Because Hamas is saying that they have been given a clear indication that they will be removed. And do you think that now the danger of the collapse of the deal can be deemed as averted?
Look, I think it's very important to look at the reality and to look at the facts. Israel has systematically breached the ceasefire, killing over 125 people in Gaza alone since the 15th of January. They have not allowed any of the mobile housing units in. They have not allowed any tents in. They have not allowed as much water as they promised. So Israel from the beginning has not kept to the ceasefire. And these are the obstacles that are preventing the ceasefire from continuing. Now, if Israel commits to allowing the amount of aid that was agreed initially into Gaza and stops killing people in Gaza, as well as in Jenin and in the West Bank, then there is hope that the ceasefire will continue successfully. But if Israel continues to kill people with impunity, then how can anybody expect the other side to stick to the terms of a ceasefire that Israel is continually breaching and breaking on a daily basis?
Ken, do you think that deal can now be deemed as saved? I mean, we talked about this subject last week. You were not very hopeful about its prospects, but now that Hamas has stated that they would release those three hostages, could we say that for the time being, as long as the sixth round of the swap is concerned, the deal could be regarded as saved? And also, could you clarify, on the basis of your observations, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu earlier mentioned about the release of all of those hostages, not just those three who are to be released Saturday, but also, I think all of them, altogether 76 of them, who are still in the Gaza Strip. What is the Israeli position? Do they want all of those hostages this week, by the end of this week, or only three of them?
Well, the Americans' condition, President Trump said, if they are not released before all of them, for let's say on Saturday, then we'll send them. And Netanyahu follow suit in this new condition. But you know, every week 3 hostages is going to be a very lengthy process, and Hamas will do everything in its power to find new obstacles to frustrate the process. They find all kinds of obstacles to frustrate the process because that's the only leverage they have on the Israelis is the hostages, nothing else.
And also, Ken, Hamas is claiming that Israel did not honor its obligations in connection with allowing in Gaza Strip agreed amounts of vital humanitarian aid, including tents and shelters. And Israel, of course, denied these claims. But also in the context of Donald Trump's Gaza takeover claim, it could be argued that there is a sensibility surrounding the return of displaced Palestinians back into the Gaza Strip, and also there is a fear that some of the actions taken by Israel could eventually lead to their exodus, giving rise to the possibility of Palestinians not being able to leave and stay in the Gaza Strip. How do you evaluate this sensibility? Ken, this is a question to you.
Of course. Well, I can imagine it is very sensible to the Palestinians because, they started this war and things are going very bad for them. Now, President Trump, the Americans are moving in and they're putting a lot of pressure on the Palestinians, but not only on the Palestinians. They're putting a lot of the Arab nations around Egypt and Jordan that they should actually responsibility in solving this endless feud between the Palestinians and the Israelis. So, yes, it is very sensitive because the Palestinians will not be able to solve this problem. Because at the end of a few weeks, when all the hostages are released, the war will start again.
And when all the hostages are released, do you think Israel will achieve a greater degree of maneuverability? Because hostages actually stop them from doing whatever they would have done under normal circumstances.
Yeah, of course, they would have cleaned up Gaza months ago. But because of all the hostages, they were hidden in tunnels and wherever in Gaza, that would hold them from taking, let's say, the final actions.
Nisa, there is a school of thought prevailing amongst Israeli policymakers, amongst the think tanks based in Jerusalem, that Hamas is abusing the fact that they have hostages and they're using it in a way that they shouldn't use. What do you make of those claims?
I think they're completely unfounded claims. I mean, look, Israel has been occupying illegally Palestine for 76 years, since 1948, since the original Nakba that I know Ken has written about in some articles in the newspapers denying that the Nakba ever happened. 750,000 Palestinians were expelled. There were multiple massacres that were committed against the Palestinian people since 1948 until today. And the Palestinian people have showed resilience and they have shown that they are not going to leave. You can bomb, you can kill, you can attempt to ethnically cleanse them, you can do whatever you want, but the Palestinian people will remain on their land, the land of their ancestors and the land that they are indigenous to. Not unlike those coming from Poland and other places and New York and evicting Palestinians from their homes and throwing them out. So, I mean, there's hostages, or I call them prisoners, because many of them were active duty soldiers who were involved in the atrocities that have taken place against the Palestinians in the last 70 years, or in the last 20 years, if we look at more recent times. But what about the Palestinian hostages? What about the children that have been held? Arbitrary detention with no charges, tried in military courts for nothing, for throwing stones. I mean, if you're looking at bringing an end to the situation, you have to look at both sides. And if you're only focusing on the Israeli problems or the Israeli situation, then you're dehumanizing Palestinians and you see Palestinians as less human. And the fact that Trump thinks that he has the authority to take or own Gaza or anything else is nothing more than a fantasy and a delusion. And we will see in the coming months and years that that's not going to happen, and Palestine remains for the Palestinians.
But Nisa, do you still believe that if it's a fantasy and delusion, it's a very dangerous delusion, because Trump is a man of practicable action, and quite often he has managed to achieve or some of his outlandish ideas. To what extent do you think that those people who believe in the two-state solution, who believe that proper Palestinian state should be established eventually, they should actually be genuinely worried about this idea, which is widely described as US Gaza takeover idea?
Yeah, I mean, out of the 192 nations in the United Nations, 146, which is over 75%, recognize Palestine as a sovereign state. Many countries, Portugal, Spain, China, many have come out and opposed what Trump has said because it's absolutely ludicrous and ridiculous. Yes, Trump is a man of practicality, but Trump is also a businessman, and Trump also looks at trying to bring an end to these conflicts and making money off them. I don't think that it's in his best interest, or Netanyahu's, or anybody's, for this war to continue. And you cannot force or even give them the option to leave without having the right to return. We already have over 8 million Palestinian refugees worldwide who are not allowed to go back home to their native land, to Palestine. And the people of Gaza know this. After genocide and after 15 months of massacre, murder, bombing mosques, schools, hospitals, killing children, snipering pregnant women, the Palestinians have not left. So I don't think that there's much more other than nuking the place that will push the Palestinians to leave. And I don't think Trump is willing or stupid enough to do that.
Ken, do you think that the Gaza takeover idea, whatever one may think of it, whatever one may think of its merits, whatever one may think of its legal side, would eventually, if applied, lead to the mass exodus of Palestinians from the Gaza Strip?
Well, Trump is putting a lot of pressure on the process. I just heard from my friend his story, but this story he repeated for 1 million times. Teams like to victimize themselves as the ultimate victim in this dispute. But that's not how we're going to resolve the problem, by playing the victim. The fact actually is that we have tried, and so many others have tried, to solve this dispute over the last, 70 years. And there is no compromise, because the Palestinians don't want a two-state solution. They want a one-state solution, and that's a Palestinian state without Israel, meaning a genocidal solution, killing the Israelis and from the land, build our own Muslim state instead of it.
What a load of rubbish.
You think that the Israelis agree to that? The Israelis are not going to agree to that.
It's in the Israeli manifesto
solution
for it to be an ethno-Jewish supremacy state for Jews alone. So you can't, you talk about victim, but Israel's
that's
very
not
good
a
at playing
fact.
the victim.
That's not a fact,
Yeah, it is a fact.
But there are living 2 million Arabs in Israel.
Yes, so look at the state of how those Arabs
from
are
the
living.
same branch.
I'm sorry, Ken, would you say with all due
How do you know?
fairness...
They're living in a very well condition.
Sorry, Ken, would you say with all due fairness that State of Israel, or at least the current government in charge of the country, is actually genuinely interested in taking actions eventually leading to the two-state solution? Or do you think that Israel is doing its level best to make sure that two-state solution will never happen? What is your honest answer to this question, Ken?
Never happen. Let me be fair. The current and even the former governments are not interested in a two-state solution. They've tried so much to let's say, go beyond the Oslo Accords and try to find a two-state solution. Well, since of October, the Palestinians have overplayed their hands, and there is no two-state solution anymore. It's over. It's gone.
And what will be the future status of Gaza, in your estimation?
Well, I've written an article about a three-state solution. Mr. Trump goes beyond my solution. My solution was that Egypt will take care of Gaza because they established Gaza in 1948, and Jordan would take care of the West Bank because they established the West Bank in 1948, and that the Arabs should take actually the responsibility in solving the Palestinian problem and go beyond that. because he said, I want to remove the inhabitants, the Palestinians from Gaza into Egypt. There's plenty of space over there.
There's plenty of space in America as well for Israel. Go to Florida or somewhere.
Sorry,
but that's not going to happen. No, because, you know...
Nor is Palestinians going to Egypt or Jordan or anywhere else.
From Australia.
Palestine is for the Palestinians. And they are not leaving, and nobody will make them leave. You've tried 15 months of superior technology and bombing and massacre, and you've achieved none of your goals. Nothing. You haven't destroyed Hamas. You haven't recovered the hostages. In fact, you've killed more hostages than you've rescued. And you've created a sentiment in the world which shows that you are the monsters and that you do not value human life and that you are a colonial settler state with settlements still being built every single day in contravention of all international law and humanitarian law in the West Bank and everywhere else. Forced displacement of Palestinians. The world knows what Israel is now.
Let's hear from Ken. Please,
let's assume you're right. Let's assume you're right. Neither the Israelis will leave this area. They won't leave. They stay.
I mean, Nisa...
No, they shouldn't leave.
Continue the fight then?
No, they shouldn't leave. They should just end the occupation. There's been multiple opportunities for Israel to stop occupying, to stop besieging, to stop taking people's land, to stop this apartheid state and the apartheid system of separate roads and all of this. If Israel lived and gave them the rights as a human being that they deserve, and every human deserves.
Nisa, Israelis always say that, and when you speak to Israeli colleagues and analysts, that there is no occupation in Gaza, Hamas in charge there. They say that West Bank is not ready to be an independent state. So, in a sense, is what is called by international law Israeli occupation of Palestinian territories is an inevitability. And I think that Mr. Maurice Hirsch from Jerusalem Center, and also Ken himself, they have argued along the lines of saying that after the 7th of October, the civilian population of Gaza, Gazans, Palestinians of Gaza, lost their moral rights to claim to have a state or to strive.
Absolutely.
That's what you said Ken, I remember. And this is a point, this is an argument voiced by many people of your ilk. What do you make of that, Nisa?
Well, I think that we take it back and we revert back to international law. The occupier has no right to self-defense. You are occupying another person's country, other people's land. You are controlling their land, their sea, their airspace, their borders, what goes in, what goes out. You can turn electricity on and off. And this is before the 7th of October. This did not start on the 7th of October. And anybody that uses that as a benchmark to dictate how the Palestinians should be treated is either very, very ignorant or just very racist against Palestinians. Palestinians have been occupied since Israel left 15 or 18 years ago. They're completely besieged. The food that comes in, the material that comes in, Israel dictates that. Now, if you're telling me that people in the largest open air prison in the world should just sit back and accept that without doing anything, then, you know, that didn't happen. Even in Nazi Germany, when the Jewish resistant movements out of the ghetto, the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, they fought back. They fought back. And I don't understand why people think that Palestinians should just sit there and accept this apartheid, this occupation, this dehumanization, and not do anything about it. It's ridiculous.
Ken, there seems to be an argument that because Israel is an occupying force, because Israel is an occupying force, Hamas and other organizations are perfectly entitled to take all possible measures to protect their interests of the local population. This argument has been mentioned, has been voiced by many people. What do you make of that argument, self-defense against occupation? Ken?
It's a narrative propaganda because it's not true, it's a lie. And I will explain you why it's a lie. You know, Israel is not occupying Gaza. Gaza has also a border with Egypt. Have you seen the Egyptian border between Egypt and Gaza? That's unbelievable. They won't let people, Palestinians into Egypt. They won't let any aid in from Egypt into Gaza.
That's not true.
They leave it all to
I'm going to correct you. Sorry, that's not true. I'm an international humanitarian. I have done 5 trips to Egypt in the last 5 months, distributing aid to over 150,000 Palestinian refugees from Gaza who have only left in the space of 7th of October and when Israel went into Rafah, I believe, in June. So to say that there's no Palestinians going into Egypt,
so why do you rely on the Israelis?
Absolute Israeli propaganda.
If to fulfill these needs, why do you need Israel to give humanitarian aid to their own enemies? You think that the Germans were
because it's your obligation as an occupying force.
Warsaw with food?
It's your obligation as an occupying force. You are occupying, and the majority of the inhabitants of Gaza are from other places that you have pushed them out of in the last 70 years. If you're denying the Nakba and you're denying the hostile takeover of Palestinian territory by Israel, then you are no academic or scholar, sad to say.
Let me say it again. You're victimizing yourself and you're building your own narrative, and you keep on turning around being a victim. Where is the problem? When are you going to move away from an illusion and be very practical and try to solve your problem? Fighting Israel over the whatever years is not going to resolve your problem. Because you lose again.
Israel is the problem. The current state. The current state of Israel and the politics of Israel. That's where the problem is. Look at the number of people in Tel Aviv coming out. Look at the number of people in Tel Aviv coming out opposing Netanyahu, opposing this far-right Likud party, opposing the policies of Israel.
That's internal politics.
Yes, but it's also based on the treatment of the Palestinians.
No. You know, in Israel there's a democracy, there's free speech.
Social media, but we see all of them. We see all of these protests on social media.
They say, of course you do, and be happy with it. And we Israelis are very happy with that, because it's a democracy. We have a free fight to the streets of Gaza and say that Hamas should be through the head.
You don't have a democracy. You don't have a democracy. Arabs do not have the same rights. They do not have the same representation politically.
What do you mean we don't have a democracy?
The rights to use the same roads as you. Come on, everybody knows the truth. So you can spread your propaganda key points that every Zionist pushes
the second largest party
we all know the truth.
In the Knesset. The second largest party in the Knesset are the Arabs. The very large party.
Have you seen how they're treated when they speak? Have you seen when they speak about Gaza or when they speak? Come on. Let's be realistic. Maybe that works with people that haven't been following this situation and scenario for a long time. But as somebody that has been following this for a very long time and has been very active in pushing for the rights of Palestinians, firstly to return and also to be treated as human beings, this doesn't work. Nobody is going to fall for this anymore. Israel has systematically massacred, murdered, tortured, raped their prisoners. They have imprisoned children. They have done all of these things that you accused Palestinians of doing that were later debunked by your own media, Haaretz, and also by the Washington Post. This is what you guys do. This is what Israel's been doing.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much indeed.
How are you going to resolve your problem? When will you be happy?
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm most grateful to you for expressing your views in a very cogent manner to both of you indeed. But my last question, please, both of you respond in a very concise way. First Ken and then Nizo. Do you expect by the end of this week this deal will still stand? Ken, first you and then Nizo.
Hamas to release these 3 hostages.
Then it will stand.
But I can assure you that after yes, of course it will. But the next week they will come up with some other obstacles. So this is an iterative process. Over the next few months. They're going to play this game. They continue till they have hardly any hostages left or any hostages alive. And then they will fight something else to frustrate the process.
Nizo, what's your feeling about what will happen until this end of the week. I mean, Saturday is a key date, of course. So do you think that deal will survive, at least for the next few days?
Well, hopefully, I'm hopeful. I mean, today I've seen images of the trucks with the shelters and the tents at the Rafah border getting processed to go in. So hopefully, if that goes in and the aid that they promised in the initial deal goes in, then it should be fine. But at the end of the day, Israel has a track record of breaching agreements and ceasefires. So we'll see what happens in the future.
Well, thank you very much indeed to both of you. I'm most grateful to you. This were Ken van Leeuwen, political analyst and former intelligence officer, who joined from Amsterdam, the Netherlands, and Nizar Dahan, representative of the organisation Stand Up for Palestine, who joined from Swansea, Wales, United Kingdom. See you very soon.